Hey guys, so today we're going to be going over stacks, which is a data structure you're probably going to come in contact with. The thing to know about stacks is it follows a last in, first out architecture. So basically, the last item put into a stack is going to be the first item that's plucked out of the stack. And a stack is basically just like a set of data. That's all it is. So I'm going to show you the ES6 syntax way, which is like the new school. Then I'm going to show you the functional class method way, which is kind of like the old school way. So let's start with the new school way. I'll say class stack. And I'm going to use a constructor. Just like you would, this is the ES6 syntax. And inside my constructor, I'm going to use this.storage equals an empty array. And if you're unfamiliar with this keyword, it's kind of out of the scope of this tutorial, but just know that a stack contains data, so I'm using the this keyword to kind of specify like where I'm going to store my data. So now that I'm inside of the class stack, I can also add methods. So I'm going to add a method to add value to the stack. I'll call it add item, and it's going to take a value and curly braces. So notice this is the syntax to make a function inside of a class. Notice I don't have to use the function keyword. It's just kind of like this. So since I want to add a value to my storage, I can say this.storage.push because it's an array, and then I'll push the value of whatever I call when I use the add item method. So that looks good. Now let's kind of like make a method to print out all the values inside my storage. So I'll say print, and in this case, I'm going to console.log this.storage. And if you recall, because stacks are last in, first out, I'm going to need a retrieve method to get that very last item first, which would be 5 in this case. So I'm going to make a method called retrieve. And retrieve is going to work like this. I'm going to console.log this.storage and call the pop method here. So recall that pop will actually mutate this array, so it'll permanently remove this 5 when it returns it the first time. But it should return that 5, right? Okay, so this is pretty much all there is to it as far as like your methods and setting up the class stack. Now, I need to make a variable though to have access to these methods. So the way you would do that, you would say const, and we can call this variable myStack, and set it equal to a new stack. So I'm saying this myStack variable is equal to a new instance of the class of stack, and now I have access to all of those methods. So I could say myStack, and let's add some values to our stack. So I'll say add item 4. And then I'm going to copy and paste this a bunch of times, add some different values in there. And I want to call myStack.print to make sure these values are being pushed to my storage. And if I run that, we can see that it's working. That's good. That's a good sign. Now, let's test if it actually does the retrieval method. And then after I call retrieval, I also want to call print again. Reason I'm doing that is I want to retrieve that last value and also be able to see my storage array afterwards. So let's run this, and there you have it. So you can see from this right here that that last item, the 34, is being grabbed when I call retrieve, and then the array is permanently mutated, like I said, right? So 34 is no longer there. Let's run it one more time. So I'll say retrieve, and then let's print what's left. So because it's going to grab the last item, we would expect it to grab 42, and it does. Okay, cool. So that is how you would make a stack using ES6 syntax. And let's go back to just a functional class. So pretty much the same thing, honestly. It's just function stack. And then you're going to want to make an object. So we'll say const obj equal to some empty object. I'm going to return that object within this function stack. And now I can go about adding my storage. So I'd actually do that by making a property for my object. So I'd say obj.storage, set it to that empty array. And then my methods would pretty much be very similar to what we had before, but I'm just going to use that dot syntax for an object. So I'd say obj add item equals a function. That function is going to take a value. I'm going to push that value to my storage. So I'd say obj storage.push value. And let's make that print method. So I'd say print equals function. Same thing we're doing before. Console.log obj.storage now. And finally, let's make the retrieve method. So I'll say retrieve equals a function. And then I'll console.log. We're going to mutate this storage array. And that's okay. Okay, sweet. So I've set up my methods just like we did before. Nothing really too dramatically different. Let's make a variable called myStack. MyStack is going to equal a call on the stack function. Now I should have access to all those properties. So I'm going to say, let's add some items here. Let's do this a couple times. Change the values. Then let's call print. We can see those values are being outputted. Awesome. Now let's do the retrieve method. We're expecting 23 here. We get 23. And finally, let's print it again just to be safe. And that looks good as well. It's mutated the array like we said it would. So that is how you would do a stack using functional classes. Like I said, pretty much everyone nowadays uses the ES6 syntax at the beginning of this video.